COVID-19 has brought the Montreal Canadiens season to a temporary halt. How will they play when they return to the ice? Plus, our thoughts on Tim Peel getting caught on a hot mic on this week's edition of Hockey Inside Out. My name is Julian McKenzie, and joining me today are the usual suspects. Montreal Gazette columnist Stu Cowan, Jessica Rusnak of CBC Daybreak Montreal, and former Montreal Canadiens defenseman and NHL assistant coach Rick Green. Let's get right into these topics. You all know by now, Montreal Canadiens games have been postponed after Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Yoel Armia were added to the team's COVID list ahead of their matchup against the Edmonton Oilers earlier this week. And the Canadiens aren't scheduled to play again until March 30th. That's quite a bit of layoff between when the game was supposed to happen this past Monday, to when we're expecting it next week. How do you all think the Montreal Canadiens' COVID-19 pause will affect the team? Scheduling, the lack of practicing, other factors. How do you think it's going to affect them?
It's going to be really hard to get those 4 games in. I don't know how the NHL is going to squeeze them in. The Canadiens have 16 games in 30 days in April. There's not a lot of time in between. They might need to extend the season maybe a few days later. I can see them squeezing 2 games in maybe before the end of the regular season, but I think they might need to add 2 games after the regular season was scheduled to end on May 8th. But I think it's, the one way it might help is Tyler Toffoli might not miss any games. He might be healthy again by the time they come back. But the thing is, the practice facility is closed, so these guys aren't skating, they're not working out, they're not really doing anything unless they have a gym at home. So this is going to hurt them going forward. The only positive I see is Tyler Toffoli possibly being healthy. Shea Weber getting a bit of a rest, but that rest they're going to pay for a price for it down the road because these games are going to be jammed together going forward.
Yeah, I see this as an opportunity to catch up on some sleep for the players. But besides that, I think that's pretty much it. As you said, they're going to be having to work out by themselves at home. Maybe it's a nice little mental break because they'll have more time to spend with their family members that they might have not had before. But not being able to skate is going to be a huge factor, I think, with this pause right now.
I think it should benefit the team, especially guys like Weber and Price. And we've seen what those guys are like when they are arrested. This is going to give them a perfect opportunity to recharge and, change their mindset and maybe, clean the slate a little bit as far as what they did before and maybe start with a good look at a fresh start in the final games. And, as far as practice time goes, they never practice much anyway. So these guys are top shape. They're going to manage their conditioning at home like most of them do and what they've done in the past. So they're quite able to deal with this. And I think it's going to work other than the scheduling when it comes down, as Stu had mentioned, the number of games in the short period of time is going to be even more difficult to get them in. And I don't really know how they're going to do it without extending the season because you can't, at least from what I've seen, I have not seen 2 NHL games with the same team play on one night. So we'll have to see how this plays out from a management standpoint, but it's going to be a huge challenge on the scheduling front.
Yeah, at this point in the season, every player has bumps and bruises on their body. Especially a guy like Brendan Gallagher. So we'll give them time for some of those to heal up. But I just think that it's going to be a real grind going forward. The good thing is that the Ottawa Senators beat the Calgary Flames, so they're back-to-back. So the Canadiens are actually, I sort of thought when this paused, by the time they come back, they'd be out of a playoff spot in the standings, but it doesn't look like it's going to be that way, and they can thank the Ottawa Senators for that.
The Vancouver Canucks also lost to the Winnipeg Jets this week as well, so they missed out on an opportunity to kind of overtake them or at least tie them in the standings as well. I'm curious, and I know I've heard Pierre LeBrun mention this at different points, that maybe we should be looking at points percentage as opposed to points when it comes to teams in the standings with regards to whether or not COVID could affect certain games or not. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys may be more in the know than I might be, but do you think we might end up at a point where if these games are not rescheduled for the Montreal Canadiens, that we actually do go on and emphasize more on points percentage or anything else in the standings we should look at?
You would have to think that it's a bonus for the Canadiens not having to play Edmonton. Those three games. That's as we know going into that before this COVID stuff came in, it was like we got a hot team that's striving to finish first in the north, and it didn't happen, and maybe it's a bonus for the Canadiens, but still it's going to be interesting to see how they handle these missed games, moving forward.
The NHL might get lucky because you never know, they might get to where the season was supposed to end, and the top 4 teams in the North Division are already decided who's going to be in, and maybe the Canadiens and the Oilers are locked in second and third, so they could just say, okay, well, the standings are set the way they are, and we move forward like that. It's a possibility, but we'll have to see. The way these standings are they're so tight and so close now, and they change from day to day. But as I said earlier, I think the NHL will be able to squeeze in 2 of the games before the regular season is supposed to end, but I can't see how they can get all 4 in.
It's kind of the year where anything goes, that you're kind of making things up as you go along, because situations are constantly changing. And I think the NHL is just going to, once they get to that point, make a decision. I agree with Stu that I think two games are very doable. They might just say, you know what, let's just extend the season by a few extra days and find a way to have the other 2 games being played. But I think that's going to be a decision for later down the road, and seeing what the standings look like as the regular season is close to ending.
There's also no guarantee there won't be other positive cases in the North Division moving forward. So this is it's a constant evolving story with this COVID thing. And you also wonder what happens when they get into the playoffs if we have a COVID outbreak. The pandemic isn't going away yet, and it's going to be a continuing problem for the Canadiens and the NHL moving forward.
The tagline for this. Oh, Rick, I won't cut you off on your point.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, we had this discussion before the season started that, okay, what happens? How do the NHL and teams handle in the event that they do get this COVID stuff come into, canceling games and rescheduling, and it's still uncertain how they're going to be able to really put all the pieces in place to allow the season to finish the way they were hoping. And there could be other situations where these games are going to be canceled, and then they're going to have to start scratching their head again to figure out, okay, how do we make this work? And then trying to get guys and teams caught up to games at hand. I mean, it's just it's a huge challenge for the league, and it's going to be really interesting what they come up with.
I think Jess may have inspired a tagline for the 2021 NHL season, making it up as we go along. So let's move on to the next question. Since we don't have a lot of Montreal Canadiens games in recent memory to talk to you about, we can still look back at the first half of the season and some things that might have gone well and some things that might not have gone well. Let's focus on a guy who I think you guys will speak a little positively about, in Tyler Toffoli. This is a guy who Stu mentioned before, with the layoff that's in place right now, he may be healthier to return when the Canadiens get back to playing on the ice. About 18 goals, I think. 18 goals and 27 points in 30 games during the first half of the season for Tyler Toffoli to this point. I'm very curious, panelists, what are your takeaways of Tyler Toffoli's season to this point?
He's no good. The Canadiens never should have gone after him. I think the fact is, when they said that he was going to be out against the games against Edmonton, and everyone was like, oh no, this is not a good sign for the Montreal Canadiens, shows just the kind of impact that Tyler Toffoli has on this team. It was good that he was able to fit in on this team pretty easily with no preseason this year, with COVID delaying the start of the season, him coming from the Western Conference and finding his game with the Montreal Canadiens. He's been one of the really big bright spots for the Montreal Canadiens so far this year.
And without taking anything away, obviously, from his point production and goals, I mean, he's doing exactly what he was brought here to do. And, leading the team with 18 goals is quite impressive. And the other part of his game that I look at, and I just quite amazed, because there is a knack for that, and it's instinct. And he's the kind of guy, you don't see him wasting a lot of energy to make things happen. He's kind of slippery out there. He disappears into the soft spots, and next thing you know, he's got the puck on his stick and it's gone and it's in the net. So this type of talent that he possesses is just great to watch, and obviously well needed, because he does make the difference between close games, and he doesn't miss. He's a true sniper, and I'm quite impressed with his, like I said, his ability to find open spots, and then just his way of finishing around the net. So just an excellent player for the Canadiens.
Yeah, he's a case of one of those guys who plays in the Western Conference, or was in Montreal. We don't get to see him that often unless you're staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning watching the late game on TV. But we knew he was a sniper. We knew he could score goals. He's got that wicked shot, but I just didn't realize how good he is in all situations. He's a guy who penalty kills, plays the power play, plays a regular shift. They have him out at the end of games when they're up by a goal or down by a goal. He's a goal scorer, and it's something you can't teach. And as Marc Bergevin said, when the puck leaves the stick, it always goes to a good place. That's a great compliment for any player. And the goal he scored one of the recent games to send it into overtime late in the game, it was a perfect example of what Rick was saying. He was in a battle for the puck behind the net. He left that battle, sort of quietly snuck behind the net, popped up on just in front of the net, and Corey Perry found him with a pass, and he buried it. So he's not the fastest skater out there, but he knows how to find those sort of quiet areas on the ice and get open. And once the puck's on his stick, he knows what to do with it. He's got that great shot, that quick release. And you wonder where the Canadiens would be without him this season and Josh Anderson, because scoring goals continues to be a problem for this team, apart from, the Gallagher, Anderson, Toffoli, and Petrie. They're the guys that are providing more than 50% of the goals for this team.
I'm happy you mentioned Anderson. I'm happy you mentioned all these other different Canadiens players, because it kind of segues into the next question I'd like to ask. And you can mention Tyler Toffoli if you'd like, but I'm sure there are some other candidates. I have one in mind, and I'm sure one of you all will mention it. Here's the question I'm going to ask. In terms of this team, in terms of what we've seen so far from them so far, which of these players do you think have been the most pleasant surprises in terms of forward and that defense for this team?
I have to go with Josh Anderson, with 11 goals, and more importantly, what he brings to the team. You look at him when he's in the lineup and the energy he brings and the type of tempo that he plays and how effective he is on the opposition for forcing, the other teams to make errors. And I think he's just a catalyst for the team. And, when he was out those 3 games, you could see a different Montreal Canadiens versus when he's in the lineup. And I think he brings obviously a lot more than just his ability around the net. And he's just the kind of guy that I think when you mention that name in public, Marc Bergevin has a little smile on his face.
And go ahead, Stu.
Joel Edmondson has been a surprise for me. I mean, I knew he was that sort of solid stay-at-home defenseman, but one of the reasons Jeff Petrie is having the season he's having is because of Joel Edmondson. He's been a perfect partner for him. I think he's a little bit out of place right now, being with Weber on the top pairing. You have 2 sort of slow defensemen out there, which is, I think, going to be tough going forward. But Edmondson's been a really solid, effective defenseman. He's impressed me the way he plays with Petrie. He's allowed Petrie to do his thing and be a little bit more offensive. Edmondson impressed me the way he's able to get the puck on the net. It's not always a big slap shot from the blue line. He's able to sort of throw it in there and create some chaos in front of the net on a rebound or deflections or whatnot. So he's surprised. He's better than I thought he was when Marc Bergevin signed him. But all the signings Marc Bergevin did in the offseason have really worked out well.
And just to bring it back to Anderson, when he traded Max Domi for him, there were so many unknowns. There were people saying, why are you trading for a player who is coming off a serious injury? He hasn't played in almost a year, so you don't know what you'd be able to get. He wasn't scoring a lot of goals last season. And then I think he came into Montreal wanting to prove himself. I'm sure he heard the negative comments that were made about the trade, and it's really paid off. And I think that he's been the player that has been most pleasantly surprised, because you had no idea what you were going to get from Josh Anderson.
Another guy I need to mention is Corey Perry, the guy who started off on the taxi squad. Probably the best bargain in the league at $750,000. I mean, he's 35 years old, doesn't have the legs, but man, he's still got the hands, he's still got the hockey smarts, and he still knows how to score.
And
go ahead.
Sorry, Julian, I wanted to mention, Petrie on the defensive side. I mean, this guy has done everything in his power to be just an outstanding player to date. And when you crank out the 11 goals and the 27 points that he's got as a defenseman, he's involved in every game and he's doing something to help his team to win. And he's been a real. I mean, he's shown in the past that he's a good player, but I think he's elevated his level of play to be even a real great player for the Canadiens. And he's showing just exactly how good he is by getting the results, in the scoring department.
He's so fun to watch too. Eric is just so smooth in everything he does. He's such a smooth skater, and when he walks the blue line and gets the puck through, he's fun to watch.
Yeah, he's he moves up the ice so well and effortlessly. He's just really, really nice to watch, and I think he's come to understand that he's selecting when to jump into the play offensively a little better than in previous years, and it's working for him. So hats off to him with what he's brought to the team, and hopefully that'll continue for him because he deserves full credit for what he's done so far to date.
I'm still surprised that no one's mentioned my pick, and I thought Jonathan Drouin would actually get some praise for this. And I know a lot of people have expected a lot from him, and I know the expectations have been heightened pretty much since he was acquired here. But this was like the first good season he's really had with the Montreal Canadiens, where he's being put in a role that kind of suits him. And there are nights where he literally is like the best hustler on the ice with the way that he's been forechecking, the skill that he's displayed as well. I get there's some expectations around him, but I think he's been a very pleasant surprise. Josh Anderson's filling out his role just fine. Tyler Toffoli's doing his role just fine. But I think Jonathan Drouin was kind of pushed to the side with all the new acquisitions, and all of a sudden he's kind of come out and he's done really well for the team. So that's my pick for most surprising forward. And I think Joel Edmondson easily would have that title for most pleasant surprise when it comes to the defenseman.
Yeah, Joey, I mean, the thing with Joey, he's got to shoot the puck a bit more still. He's got only 2 goals, lots of assists, but you're right. I mean, nobody was happier with the coaching change, I don't think, than Jonathan Drouin to get to play for his old junior coach. And Dominic Ducharme is playing him a lot. His ice time's gone up quite significantly since Ducharme took over.
And also having Toffoli and Anderson there, kind of the focus isn't always on Jonathan Drouin, that they're able to spread it around. And I think that might help as well, not always having that pressure that's constantly on him.
We've talked about Shea Weber on this show and his struggles, and maybe something should be done with his minutes. Now he finds himself in a position where his regular defense partner, Ben Sherratt, is out for the foreseeable future. Who do you think should be Shea Weber's partner going forward?
Personally, I'd love to see Romanov paired up with him. There's a kid that plays an honest game, very, very mobile, smart player, plays a physical type of play. I believe he could do nothing but compliment Weber. He's, Weber is, as we've seen, has kind of struggled a little bit. I don't know whether it's energy or injury or, he's having a hard time getting from point A to point B, unlike what we saw earlier in the season. So I think he could use a little bit of help with somebody a little more mobile that's going to, allow him to maybe take a step back from the standpoint of, keeping it simpler and helping develop Romanov in a lot of positive ways that, Weber can show him some of the tricks of the trade. And I can only look back to my partner when he first came in and Peter Svoboda, and I said before, I just look for Peter and I could just give it to him and let him do all the work and I'll take care of the stuff from the red line in. So I think it's really important that you try and pair up guys with good chemistry and ones that complement each other. And I think Romanov would be a guy who could really help Weber down the stretch.
Yeah, I think Romanov could help Weber, and I think Weber could help Romanov, as you said, Rick, playing with that veteran and being able to sit on the bench beside Weber after every shift and go over what you did right, what you did wrong. I imagine Ducharme and Luke Richardson are maybe a little hesitant because they're worried it might hurt the kid's confidence or something if things don't go well, but he seems like such a confident kid. I think it's the best option to have right now. I think, as I mentioned earlier, Weber with Edmondson, 2 slow guys playing together in an NHL that's really fast now. I think you're asking for trouble, and I think it's going to wear them both down. I think Edmondson's a perfect fit with Jeff Petrie. I'd prefer to see him back with Petrie and have Romanov play with Weber, and if the kid makes some mistakes, fine, you'll go to the bench and Luke Richardson can talk to him, Shea Weber can talk to him and move forward and learn from your mistakes. Romanov has impressed me. He plays physical, similar to what Ben Sherratt, Romanov's more of an open ice hitter, where Sherratt was sort of more physical along the boards. But I think moving forward that they've got to do that, because I just don't think playing Weber and Edmondson together for that many minutes against the top forward lines, I don't think it's going to end well.
And you kind of have nothing to lose in this scenario. Ben Sherratt's out, so why not give this rookie defenseman the opportunity to learn from your best defenseman right now? And that's the part of becoming an NHL player, that these rookies are going to make mistakes and you're just going to have to learn to live with it. And it's how you react to them after they make a mistake that will be the huge difference when it comes to their confidence. Send them right back out there. Tell them what they've done wrong. Go back out there, and then they'll feel better about themselves. But I think that's the perfect scenario right now, to use this opportunity with Sherratt out to put a young guy like Romanov out there and see what he can do, because that's basically what this is allowing you to do, is seeing who's the next guy up, and it could potentially be him.
Yeah, Romanov is a fitness freak. He's in great shape. He can handle the minutes, and Luke Richardson's a perfect guy on the bench. As Jeff Petrie has said, he doesn't scream, he doesn't yell, he just sort of talks to guys calmly, explains their mistakes, and it's a learning process. And I think it would speed up the learning process for Romanov to play with Weber and play those extra minutes.
And you can't be afraid of using him in all the situations, power play or penalty killing. It's not like he's a liability. So give the kid a chance and let him progress. And as we know, the only way for that to happen is you just throw him in there and, wait to see how he handles himself. But to date, Romanov has handled himself exceptionally well, and there's nothing but upside. And I think those two would complement each other and do a great job. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And again, we're not out of the injury situation, so they might be forced into other pairings and other combinations. So we'll see how this final stretch plays out.
Yeah, I'd like to see 3-on-3 overtime also. It seems like he's made it. I don't understand.
That's a whole
not there yet.
That's a whole, Stu, that's a whole other episode. Maybe even next week. Other guys potentially, maybe Brett Kulak. I know he only plays really well with Jeff Petrie, but maybe he gets a look. Victor Mete's been trying to get in and out of the lineup as well. But I like the endorsement of Alexander Romanov to play alongside Shea Weber. Let's get to this final question, because as far as I'm concerned, it's the story of the week. Even if it doesn't involve the Montreal Canadiens, I'm actually really excited we get to talk about this topic. Tim Peel, the referee, getting caught on a hot mic during a Detroit Red Wings Nashville Predators game. Quote, "It wasn't much, but I wanted to get a bleeping penalty against Nashville early. Obviously, I can't swear on the show, or maybe we could have just added a bleep there. I don't know. Maybe that could have worked out. I guess we'll never know." What do you all think of what happened?
I think it's unfortunate that Tim Peel showed everybody that he's a Detroit Red Wings fan. I mean, it's too bad. It's a tough call from the standpoint. He made a statement. He probably sorry that he made that statement, but the guy's a veteran ref. He's got over 1,300 games. Things happen. He just didn't realize that it was going to be broadcast and make such a huge deal about it. But you know what? It's too bad that when he's going to retire, that he's somewhat tarnished from the standpoint of this is what a lot of people are going to probably remember, and he's deserving of more than that after the career that he's had of 26 years. So too bad, but let's move on. It's a mistake. He knows it, and let's get on with the game.
Yeah, I wrote a column, but it was an even up call, which has been part of NHL refereeing forever. There's an even up call. There was only one penalty in the first period against the other team. He wanted to even it up. He got caught talking about it. As Rick said, he's refereed 1,300 games. It's not the first time he's made an even up call. Every referee makes even up calls in every game. It's one of the problems with the NHL officiating. And this just highlighted it. The fact that Peel was going to retire after this season anyway made it pretty easy for Colin Campbell to he didn't even come out and say he was fired. He just said he's not going to referee any more games this year. I feel sorry for Peel. He just said something that everybody knows. And if I was the head of the NHL Referees Association, I would refuse to let any of my referees wear a mic ever again. I think that it's one of these things. There's mics everywhere. Guys need to be so careful of what they say. He got caught saying something that every other referee says. I would think moving forward, other refs won't say anything. But if I was running the NHL Referees Association, I'd be in Gary Bettman's office saying my guys are never wearing a microphone again in a game.
Well, it's exactly that. Tim Peel only got let go because he said it on a hot mic. Everyone who heard it that's a hockey fan knows that this happens in the game. And when the NHL said the integrity of the game is so important to them, so that's why they're parting ways with Tim Peel. well, then why don't you do something about the game? Have consistent officiating. You've heard Brendan Gallagher talk time and time again about how he doesn't get certain calls from the refs, and then Brendan Gallagher will be in trouble for talking out against the refs. That's the issue at hand right now, and I think that's what many people are frustrated about, that the NHL actually wants to do something. It's not firing Tim Peel that will fix the problem. It's, doing something with your whole officiating staff.
As I wrote the column, nothing's going to change apart from NHL refs won't be talking anymore on the ice. That's the only thing that's going to change. It's an old boys club. Colin Campbell's still in there in charge of it. This is the guy I remember years ago who was berating refs when his son was playing for the Bruins about calls not going his son's way. I mean, you would have thought right then that would be enough to terminate him from that position. It wasn't. He's still there. The NHL refereeing is a joke, and that's not on the NHL refs. They're doing what they're told to do. And what they're told to do, the rules are different in the first period from the third period. They're different depending on the score. They're different whether it's a regular season or the playoffs. Why is it like that? Because the NHL wants it that way. Why, I don't know, but nothing's going to change.
Until the mics came into play with the referees back in the old days, you would not believe some of the comments that came from the referees to individuals, whether it be on the bench or on the ice. I mean, it's really a good thing that they didn't have the mics, but it was a lot of exchange of some not pretty comments that happened between player and referees back when they didn't have mics. So anyways, they hopefully will, like Stu said, learn from this. I'm not a big fan of them having it, and whether or not they're going to consider removing them, I doubt it. But it's obviously a topic of conversation today.
And somebody on the TV studio obviously forgot to turn off his mic because, as he was saying it, all of a sudden the mic cut off. So somebody in the TV studio, oh man, we forgot to turn off his mic after he had made the penalty call.
But Stu, Jess and I know this rule very well. You should assume the mic is always hot. Am I right?
Yes.
That's like one of the biggest rules. Come on, man. Fine, Tim is not a TV person, but someone should tell him, hey, be careful. Well, he'll have more time to go out to bars and drink with journalists, I guess, now that he's retired. I'm sure you guys have seen the Greg Wyshynski column that has gone around. I think that's pretty much going to do it for this week's episode, everybody. I know no Montreal Canadiens games up until the next few days, but we found a way to make the most of it with the content that we provided on this week's episode of Hockey Inside Out. Please be sure to visit the website, hockeyinsideout.com, to check out our full episode and join the discussion in the comment section.